Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Artists, Anons, and Attorneys Beyond the JPEG. We're going to get started in just a second. I'm just going to hand it off to our moderator, Amanda Cassett.
Hello, hello. Hello? Hello? There we go. My name is Amanda Cassett, aka Amanda.eth. I am CEO and founder of a company called Serotonin, which is the first and largest Web3 marketing firm. Before that, I was chief marketing officer of a company called Consensus, where I built the first Web3 marketing team that brought Ethereum to market, along with companies like MetaMask, Infura, Truffle, and a lot of the building blocks of the Web3 ecosystem. I am super grateful for the invite back to my alma mater, Columbia, to facilitate this panel on NFTs with a really awesome group of panelists. So I think let's start out by each introducing ourselves down the line and talking about what our connection is to the NFT world.
I'm happy to kick it off. My name is Raghu. Based in New York, I lead creator, product, and partner marketing at OpenSea. I've been there for about 5 months, absolutely loving it. And prior to that, spent about 6 years building out the creators team, the product and partnerships team over at Facebook/Meta and Instagram. Yeah, great to be here.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here as well. My name is Cranak. I am the president of VFriends. I spent the last 9 years working for Gary Vaynerchuk, managing his personal media content team. And then we collectively launched what is VFriends. And I think of it more as an intellectual property company than an NFT company, but excited to be here.
Hey, everybody. I guess I have to say I'm glad to be here as well. So I'm a Columbia alum. I went to Columbia undergrad. I am a lawyer at Skadden Arps, law firm in New York here. I co-head our Web3 and digital assets practice. I've been in the space for about 6.5 years now. The last 2 years, probably coming up on 2 years now, it's been, as we say, all NFTs all the time. We represent a lot of some of the iconic native Web3 projects that are out there, but also a lot of sports leagues, entertainment companies, music companies, and brands on their NFT projects.
Hello. Oh, hi, everybody. I'm Vinny. I'm the managing editor at Super Magazine, and I also work part-time with community management and some of the marketing and branding. We write and edit pieces that have to do with digital art, NFTs, Web3, and the metaverse.
Hey, I'm Lucian Smith. My career started out as a fine artist or painter. I'm now the director of cultural innovations at a company called Lobus, and we're building a blockchain infrastructure for the art world. I'm also a founder of a creative organization called STP, or Serving the People. We're building a SaaS product for the next generation of creators.
All right, so we have a star-studded panel, and I have a number of questions. And I wanted to start, maybe this pertains to everyone, but maybe we start with either Vinny or with Raghu on this. But is art going to continue to be the main NFT use case that people know about? Or do you think it's going to change? Do you think there's going to be another NFT use case that takes up the most real estate in people's minds?
I'll get started. So art was really the first use case for NFTs, and that's because we've been living in a digital world where things can so easily be replicated throughout the interwebs, right? And it was really hard to track who created it, when, who it belonged to, and it was also impossible to monetize it. And so this really made sense as far as the first usage of blockchain technology to assign provenance. We're already seeing, even just in Super's ecosystem, a shift to literary NFTs, so like poetry NFTs, also music and film, and of course, photography that's being used not just as a one of one, but ways in which you can like give back to your community and even make like dynamic and interactive and data-driven NFTs. And so we're already seeing a huge kind of shift from the simple use case of art into V-arts. And it'll be interesting to see, like, you know, where the value is assigned there. But there's also just a lot of conversations happening about NFTs being used for legal documents and for, you know, crowdsourcing and for keeping information. And so I think as we continue to see companies that are coming into the space utilizing this technology, which at base is assigning a piece of information to the blockchain, that we're going to see way more use cases beyond this first one.
What do you think, Vinny? Art continues to be the big use case? Sorry, Vinny, Raghu, art continues to be the big use case, or another big one takes center stage?
I think art still has a very long runway. So I think any new emerging technology has a breakthrough use case that serves a lot of people's needs. And I think art is doing that right now. But I think that even the penetration within the existing art market is relatively small. As everyone here says, we're in the early days. I really do believe that. That being said, I think I take a much broader definition of what art is. And so we have everything from fine art to generative art to music to even content, right? So I think we haven't even scratched the surface of what content Web3 looks like, what music in Web3 and NFTs look like as well. So I think if you expand the definition of art, we're not even getting started. And then to touch on everything Vinny said, I think we haven't even really explored everything around utility, IRL, like real estate, digitizing real world assets, all of that. It's very difficult to even conceptualize what that ecosystem looks like. But I think that my point of view is I'm very bullish even on the existing use cases within art.
What do you guys think? Art, collectibles, where's this going?
Well, with VFriends, you know, we created our NFTs and project with the idea always of them being access tokens. You know, every VFriend is a ticket to VCon. I'm bullish and excited about the use case for NFTs as tickets. I think artwork in itself, like, hey, I want to buy an NFT because I appreciate that art and I want to collect it, has its own lane. But I also think over the last 14 months, we've seen an explosion of NFTs because of art, but the art has just created more emotional resonance or emotional connection to NFTs. You know, I think there's a lot of similarities between what happened with DeFi in 2017 to what happened to today. But the reason today is much larger and making a lot much more noise is because of art and or the emotional connection to the different projects that you're seeing.
Yeah, I agree. I think art is just sort of the baseline. Like, there's going to be a time when people are going to say, remember when NFTs were like art? And people are going, I don't remember that. That was a thing. I think I also agree it's got a long runway. It's not going to go away, but it's going to be a tiny sliver of it. I think there are two quotes I really like that apply to blockchain technology generally, particularly as well to NFTs. One is that we tend to overhype new technology in the short run and underhype it in the long run. So people get really, disappointed. It's like, I thought it was going to revolutionize the world in 6 months and it didn't. So now I don't care about it. And they don't have sort of the long-term views. That's one thing. I think we're definitely doing that to a great extent with NFTs generally. But the second one, I can't remember who said the first one, but the second one was from Tim Wu, who's an author and technologist. And he said the biggest mistake all of us make, all of us, even the smartest, well, not the smartest people, but up to the smartest people in the room, is that we when a new technology comes along, we take what we're doing and see, like, well, how could we do that with the new technology? And the real breakthrough innovations are things that no one was doing. The example I always give is, like, no one goes around saying, remind me, how did we order cars from strangers to come pick us up at random street corners before we had mobile phones? And there's obviously, like, that didn't even exist. So there's going to be use cases for NFTs that I'm certain are not going to be, well, we do this, but now we do it with an NFT on a blockchain. It's going to be entirely innovative new things. And that's when the space is really going to take off and get exciting.
Yeah, it just reminded me of this Andy Warhol quote that good business is great art, right? And what this technology really dawned on me is that it's sort of widened the role of participation in the arts, right? Like, when we think about art, we think about visual art. But I was reading an interesting email today about the token model be adopted by scientists. You know, scientists are sort of an undervalued creator in a way. And so it's how we look at what is creator or what is a creator, and how, you know, scientists are going to be able to be rewarded for good research. And yeah, I think that underlying, like, the creator process is definitely going to be very served by blockchain technology, and it just widens how we look at these things and these people that are creating.
And you, Lucian, in particular, being a fine artist and coming from the fine arts world, are familiar with the fact that there's also been a backlash against NFTs, especially in that fine arts world. Why do you think that is? And do you think it's going away with the transition to proof of stake?
No, I think that it's exciting, right? Like, I stopped being a fine artist when I realized that the majority of my audience was the people not being able to participate in the actual sale or my work, just being able to view it. And I think that the NFT model and blockchain really showed me that, like, there is a way to participate with your audience and have them be involved. I think that the fine art world sort of had this backlash because it's a really old model, right? It's archaic market. But I think, and I was just having this conversation yesterday, what it proved to me is that, like, if there is money behind it or there's an industry, like, the art world will adopt it. We've seen some of the most prestigious artists come into Web3, like Urs Fischer, for example, which is really exciting because it was proof to me that, like, this archaic model can adopt a new innovative system. But yeah, I think in any ways, it just doesn't like outsiders until it does, right? Like Andy Warhol and Basquiat, some of the probably most recognizable names we know in art today, like, died with not the greatest careers, you know? And so that shows, like, how it is able to reward its creators. I think we live in a great time now where, as an artist, you can definitely profit and, like, be involved in your market while living.
Anyone else on the panel? I think everyone here working in the NFT space has at some point experienced some kind of backlash or resistance to NFTs as a concept, as a business practice. How have you addressed that?
Just point them to what people said about the internet in 1997 or Web 2 in 2000, you know, and I think that's when I talk to some of the most bullish people about Web 3, they specifically talk about how much doubt there was in the previous evolutions of the internet, and everything that's happening right now and the naysayers of Web 3 feels very, 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 very similar to what was happening in 97 and throughout the rise of Web 2.
Well, and let's take it even farther back. People hated the printing press. People hated written language. People hated photography. People hated film. I mean, we just as a species are, you know, we have that fight or flight reaction. And if we don't understand what's happening, we're like, hell no, keep that away from me, right? And especially when you're talking about your finances, when we're talking about generations like Gen X and millennials and Gen Z, who are, for the most part, really worried about their financial wealth, both presently and in the future. You have a financially driven technology like blockchain, and yeah, you're probably going to be worried about it. And for anyone older than that, who doesn't know how to use Netflix, you're going to be like triply worried about that, right? So I think there's just this disconnect for a lot of people about what it is and what it can do. And something we talk about a lot is the fact that, you know, you don't really need a lot of education to be able to use the internet, to use a smartphone, but blockchain is still very much in that stage where, you know, let's say you want to put some money into a digital wallet to buy an NFT. You have to go to an exchange, and then you have to open the MetaMask wallet or whatever. And sometimes it's buggy and doesn't work. And then you have to put the money from the exchange to the wallet, connect to the website, pick the NFT out of millions of NFTs. So you see what I'm saying here? There are lots of steps. And even for digital natives, that could be too many steps. That could scare people off. And so we don't really have the device that is going to take us to the next step. The same way you were talking about, you know, the mobile device brought us to Uber. Like, it was the computer for Web 1, the smartphone for Web 2. We don't really have that device yet that's going to connect people to Web 3 in a seamless fashion.
I think it's also, I can actually steal an example Gary gave once, because I think it's a really, when I tell these people, sometimes the skeptics say, okay, I kind of get it. Imagine if, you know, technology evolved, science evolved, so that you could create an exact replica of the Mona Lisa, to the point of being able to, you know, reverse carbon date the paint, so that even if you took a paint fleck, you couldn't tell the original from the copy. there's still, maybe not everybody, but still a lot of people, probably the majority of people would say, yeah, but that's what like Da Vinci did. Like that's the original. This is like a very cool, amazingly done copy. But I kind of want the original the artist actually did on their own. And there's definitely a feeling of that that's out there of people owning original works that I think applies in the NFT space. The other thing I think, which is really going to be an interesting development, it'll be interesting to see how it happens. We for years lived in an environment where people owned their content, right? You own books, you own vinyl, you own CDs, you own cassettes. Like everyone owned things. We're now entirely in a rental model, right? Spotify shuts down tomorrow. Your Spotify, channel, your series, your song, it's gone. So everyone's just renting content. NFTs are now starting to bring us back to owning content, which people really liked. It'll be interesting to see if that sort of changes, society in a way, or cultural society back to an ownership model from a rental model, which is what we've gotten so used to.
So I kind of have a different take. I agree with what everyone has been saying, but my experience and practice has been talking about these previous technological innovations and shifts has not resonated with people who don't get NFTs. Like, it resonates with people who are looking to be convinced, but I haven't had personal success. I would love to hear the examples, honestly, where talking about the mobile phone evolution or shifts to social media or the internet have compelled people who are on the fence about NFTs to use the technology. Where I personally found success is in one of two paths. I think number one is honestly just saying, hey, this may not be a good fit for you right now, and move to other people. I think the reality is there are so few people in the space that it's probably just a far better use of time to be focused on the people who are leaning in and supporting them and nurturing them. That's part one. Part two is there are actually a lot of Web2 use cases that we can point to of people who entered a space even after waiting for a little bit. Like I personally point to Jennifer Aniston on Instagram, Beyonce on TikTok. Both of them you might think are defaults for each of those platforms, but they joined them very, very late, right? So Jennifer Aniston joined Instagram maybe 3 years ago or 2 years ago, which seems kind of insane when her entire peer set is using this product and has hundreds or tens of millions of followers. She's missing out probably on lots of revenue. Beyonce hasn't been on TikTok in years. I think these are people you would think would be using these technologies, but needed to be convinced and needed to be shown use cases and those kinds of things. But I think the reality is people sometimes move at their own pace. So rather than trying to move all people with one argument, we're probably best off segmenting this universe of users and creators and figuring out what messaging makes sense for what people, and then leaving people who don't want to be moved right now.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. In the art world, my experience early on was that folks that had worked in the art world for a long time didn't think highly of the actual art being produced by some of the first NFT collections, and they found that it was outside of their taste and curation, but was being valued at such a high premium, and that kind of juxtaposition really bothered them. I've also seen a lot of those kinds of folks relax over time as awesome artists have gone into the space, and the kinds of folks that are really validated by the fine arts crew are entering. And I think platforms like Sotheby's launching their Sotheby's Metaverse, which is powered by a company that spun out of my company, Mojito, has been really exciting for that. Pace Gallery, there have been a lot of great, fine arts mainstays that have gone into this space. Who do you think is doing it right in terms of art plus NFTs?
Do you mean in terms of
companies, artists? Who's doing it right and why?
It's a great question. I think a lot of people are doing it right. I'll point to one example actually. It's a creator that actually has something in common with both OpenSea and Super Rare. Her name is Amber Vittoria. She's many of you may be familiar with her. If you're not, highly encourage you to check her out. She is a fine artist and illustrator and poet, but who entered the NFT space about 1.5 years ago. And I think her approach to NFTs is very interesting and illustrative. I think a couple of things stand out. Number one is she thinks about NFTs in a unique way that they are a different way to build access to her audience space, right? So when she was previously illustrating or creating fine art, she didn't really understand who was buying her pieces. or have a direct relationship with them. I think we talked with her about this idea of community, and I think community is a very overused term and word in this space, but for her, community is having a line of sight and access to the people who buy her work, generally speaking, so she can build that personal relationship. But what that does is give her an idea of who her top fans are, who are people who are more likely to collect different kinds of pieces. For example, who might want her to create one-of-one pieces on Super Rare versus other platforms, who might want to guide her next collection's ideas, right? Like, this is a different access to content creation that many artists haven't had before. And she's an example to me of someone who's really, really leaning in there well.
I'm not going to say any names, but I think there's so many ways to do it right. And I think the people that are doing it right are asking themselves the important questions about what do they actually want to do that's not a cliche model of, oh, I'm going to make an animated cartoon series, or I'm going to do a video game, or every other thing that you've seen a lot of copy and paste from NFT projects. You know, back to Amber as a good example, she's looking at her skill sets and thinking about how she can use Web3 and the technologies of NFTs as a catalyst for what she actually wants to do as a business operator. I think it starts with what are your actually skill sets that you want to spend the next 40 years on building a business, and then how do you use technology as NFTs to help be a catapult for that?
Yeah, I think that, so I divide the Web3 generally world, but the NFT world into two camps. There's the camp of people who have the mindset, if I'm doing this 5 years from now, I did something wrong. And then there's the camp of, I don't care what's happening in the next 5 years because we're building for 5 years and out. And I think those are the people who are doing things right. So a lot of our clients they're throwing everything against the wall. They're trying everything. They're trying dynamic NFTs. They're trying, membership engagement. They're doing, games. They're doing everything to see sort of both what sticks a little bit, but to see what's going to kind of work and what, they can innovate on. So I think that's, those are projects that are doing it right. I would say, though, in terms of, convincing people, even though we always look at, Web3 as sort of, community up ethos and ecosystem, I think a lot of it still is going to come from the top down. And I think the people who become convinced, is what we see, in our practice, are the sports leagues, the entertainment companies, the music companies. Like, they're all in. They're all in. They're building entire units to work on NFTs and metaverse stuff. And they can't all be wrong. Like, these are people who, for generations, have created iconic content decade after decade after decade. Like, they know what they're doing. And I always feel the fact that they think there's a there is like, and they've become convinced of that, is, to me, all the proof I need that there is something there, even if, the masses are going to take a while to come along.
Yeah, and not to be tacky, to answer your question about like who in the space is doing a lot of work towards helping artists get involved. Super Rare a year ago launched as a DAO, and so we've actually taken steps to decentralize curation. So outside of our curation team, which is already diverse and global, we have over 15 spaces who are now able to verify their own artists to be added to our ecosystem. And so when you're talking about Web3, some of the pillars of Web3 include the sovereign individual, but they also include decentralization, which means it's community driven, it's global. It's not just a few people at the top who are making all of the decisions for the entire ecosystem. And so that's something that we've been spending over a year working on, and I hope to see much more of this kind of community-driven, decentralized kind of, ecosystem affecting more parts of industries. Because, like you said, I'm really excited to see all these places. Like, we have a Gucci space in Tagliatella, which is, still a pretty like young art gallery, but still very much like the brick and mortar gallery, and they're getting excited about joining the DAO and working on spaces. And so, the question I have for these legacy brands is not only why do you want to engage in blockchain, but how are you going to change what you do to make it truly crypto native? Not just taking a product and slapping it on the blockchain, because that's not what anyone wants, right? We don't want Instagram to turn into TikTok. We don't want Facebook to turn into Instagram, right? We want something that's fresh and new. And for me, that speaks to those pillars of Web3 philosophy.
My favorite project is Tom Sachs' Rocket Factory. I think that it did a really good job of using the technology to create accessibility and then also blended together IRL activations. I think that for me, that's really where it lies, is being able to like give real world incentives using the technology. One of the models that I really like is Nouns DAO. I'm a big fan of it.
They're awesome.
Really cool.
CCO.
Yeah, you know, like there's thousands of organizations all over the world that give artist grants like monthly, and I think this is like a model that I would like to see adopted by the blockchain. The one thing I'll say about Nouns DAO is that as much money that they've raised and as successful the model is, I've never really been to anything that Nouns DAO's ever done, you know, and that's, I think, becomes the problem with a lot of these DAOs, is that they becomes like so self-involved, you know, like every project launched by Nouns DAO in some way or another, like is a Nouns DAO project. But if you were to use the same model to sort of give artist grants, you know, to co-op, you know, projects or public sculptures or activations or films, I think there's a lot of potential in that.
Yeah, so ownership came up there, right, with CC0. How is ownership changing in this new NFT world? Is it changing? What are, and maybe this is a good question for Stuart to just kind of walk us through, like legally, what the different ownership models are, because there are some that are partly Web3, there are some that are partly Web2, some have a licensing agreement. So maybe you can give us the range of different projects.
Sure, I'll do it quickly. So the most popular misconception out there is that when you own an NFT, you actually own the intellectual property that comes along with that. So what does that mean? If you go and buy a painting from an artist, from a gallery at auction, you own the physical painting. You don't own the intellectual property of that painting from the artist, meaning you can't now go make sweatshirts, mugs, an animated series based on it. You can't do any of that. You just own the physical painting. Think of it like when you buy a book of, you know, a Harry Potter book, you don't now own the Harry Potter story because I own the book doesn't mean like I own the story and I can do with it what I want. So that's always been true. That's true in the NFT space as well. You buy an NFT, it's no different from buying a painting and putting it on your wall. You own the digital work you've bought. You don't own the intellectual property, meaning you can't go do stuff with it. So that has existed and still exists in the main for most projects. Definitely true for all, you know, iconic brand or IP company, you know, Disney, Marvel, all those guys, their projects. For native Web3 projects, there was some pushback, or maybe a lot of pushback, which is, well, wait, we're a community, we're all in this together. It's crazy that like some central body owns the intellectual property. We should have unlimited rights to do with the artwork that comes along or the image that comes along with our NFT and do with it whatever we want. And so we've seen a whole bunch of models come out that allow people to do that to varying degrees, ranging from you can do anything you want. You can do anything you want, except you can't do an animated series because we the creators, the issuers, the NFT art initially want to do that. You can do whatever you want, but up to a certain dollar amount, and you can't do more than that. So all kind of different models out there. I think it's fraught with huge issues that are coming over the hill, because for a lot of those NFT projects, you think of like Bored Apes, think of a lot of them that are out there, Pudgy Penguins, like it's all the same with some differences, right? So, you know, you see one and you kind of know that's a Bored Ape, you know, that's a Pudgy Penguin, you know, it's a stoner cat, whatever it is. So now imagine you've got a community of 10,000 people, you say, everybody knock yourself out, do what you want. And now 1,000 people start associating their NFTs with a cause, a project, whatever it might be that you don't like. It doesn't have to be something illegal, it doesn't have to be hate speech. You don't have to go to that extent, but like, it's just something you don't want to be in, like, that's not what you believe in. But now that look has become like the image of something. It could be luxury brands, but you don't want to be part of luxury brands. It could be abortion rights, and you don't like the fact that you're associating with abortion rights. Like, because you can't control it when everybody's doing what they want to, I think it's fraught with issues, I said, that we haven't seen yet, but I think are coming. I think having a central body control how intellectual property can be used has worked for generations. And I think there's some backlash in the NFT world, but I think it's going to swing back to that when people realize this isn't working so well.
So now we've kind of laid out the options, right? Just because we're in NFT land doesn't mean that the NFT holder necessarily owns all the rights and licenses to do anything they want with their NFTs. Maybe we can have the rest of the panel comment now that we've sort of laid this out. Where are we going with the creator economy? We have this technology that can fundamentally change how ownership works, how creators can get remunerated. What is the creator economy and how are these new constructs changing it?
I can jump in. I think one key part of this clearly is the creator fees aspect of NFTs, right? So the ability for people to monetize not just on the launch of a new project, but also when their items are bought and sold and traded and potentially take a cut of that. There's a huge debate online for this topic. I think a lot of platforms and marketplaces are dealing with it that I won't relitigate here. I do think that there are still a ton of other monetization mechanisms that haven't fully been explored, as well as Web2 mechanisms that haven't really seen success in Web2 platforms that could actually get a lot of traction in Web3. I'm pulling from my Facebook and Instagram examples because I spend a lot of time there, but I'm quite passionate that I think a lot of the monetization models on those platforms don't actually work as well as they could in a Web3 model. For example, monetizing your top fans. There's no way right now within Facebook and Instagram, even though they try to show you within their insights who your top fans are. So if I'm a creator with an audience of 100,000 people, I don't really have a sense for within that 100,000 who is disproportionately more likely to spend at different thresholds of spend, right? Artists are already doing this kind of level of segmentation. Like we talked to Scooter Braun and his team, what they're doing for Justin Bieber and Ariana Grande is figuring out who are the people who buy VIP passes for all the different tours that we go on, who are the people who buy 7 VIP passes, travel everywhere in the world just to see these people, right? So they know who they are, they can cater to them better, they can serve them better. Web2 platforms aren't providing this level of insight. But with NFTs, you can do some level of price segmentation or interaction segmentation, engagement segmentation to figure out how can I cater to people who are leaning into my work in different ways and better serve them. I think there's a world of opportunity of monetization just in looking at that.
Yeah, and I think it's also just important to note the question of like licensing has a lot more to do with PFP or profile pic projects. Like when you're talking about one of ones, it's pretty clear to the buyers that you can't put it on a t-shirt. But you go back to that question of, what is keeping people out of the space? It's partially confusion and partially misinformation, right? Because a lot of people hear NFT and they think a Bored Ape or a punk or something like that. So I do think like what's been interesting in the last month is that the Creative Commons licensing has now crossed over from the 10,000 PFP projects into one of ones. Partially because Moonbirds had originally given all of their buyers the licensing rights to use their specific Moonbird. They then, in August, decided to go to CCO. And so people who had bought into this project were really pissed off because they were like, no, I bought the rights to this and now anybody can use this, piece of art that I, purchased. And so there was a big uproar there. But also in August, Xcopy, who's one of the most well-known OG crypto artists who originated on Tumblr, Tumblr art for the win, also decided to use CCO licensing for his artworks. And so you're seeing this interesting conversation happening with, almost like people using other people's artworks as inspiration for something that they're creating and how that could be community driven. This happened with a piece called Blue by Tijo. And, you might think, oh God, cringe, like free publicity for my artwork. That sounds awful. But this actually led to more views of his piece and a relatively high sale. I think it was like $80,000 for the sale of the original piece. And so it's really creating this cool conversation about like, is CCO a Web 2 solution for Web 3 problems? But an even more interesting conversation that I'm sure you've had with our CLO, which is there a blockchain native solution that's better than what is being applied to the digital art today?
I think back to the original point of like some of the PFP projects wanting to be Web3 native and lean into decentralization. And I think a lot of communities aspire to that. But in reality, to really operate and build a brand and an IP, I think you need to have central figures to make these business decisions to grow the brand in just strategic ways, which isn't necessarily conducive to decentralization and the native Web3 mechanics. Aside from that, I think the relationship between creators and owners in a creator economy is like the crux of what's going to play out over the next 5 years. And I'm most excited with that specific to music. When I think about artists releasing a music track where the fans who really, really believe in them are almost investing in that artist because they might be able to get licensing, streaming payouts from that artist over time. I know Royal is doing this to some degree right now, but I can't imagine a world in which 5 years from now it's not more prevalent. And I think then that the relationship between fans and artists is dramatically going to change because you're investing in, hey, Post Malone 5 years ago has 5,000 SoundCloud followers. He puts out 500 NFTs, and as part of those NFTs, you're going to get streaming payouts from his album. If he blows up, you're going to be excited. If he doesn't go to the studio and actually produce that album, you might have mixed feelings about him.
Awesome. So I think the creator economy and the ownership model evolution is super interesting here. But I want to shift to talk about technology because originally it was technology that created the potential to innovate all these different solutions. What actual tech innovations are you seeing that you're excited about in the NFT space?
There's a company that I'm a big fan of that my CEO would probably kill me for saying this, but it's called Artery. It's a gentleman that I believe was an ex-Christie's employee. His name's non-donking, I think. And what they're doing is they scrape data from the auction houses and they use that as the building blocks to create like a sort of ISBN for artworks. I think what he's doing is really smart because he's sort of building this foundation or infrastructure. And I think what you can attach onto that is like, there's tons of potential as far as like creating a centralized marketplace for all art. And I think like, for me, that's like the win-win, right? Like being able to treat digital and physical artworks the same. And I think that same model can be used in a bunch of different use cases. So definitely, Artery.
Technology innovation.
Yeah, I'll go. So there are a couple. I'd say if I had to pick one, I think the most, because I think it's the most innovative and not duplicative of other things, are the people who did the Aave decentralized finance protocol with our labs now created something called the Lens protocol, which is a social media graph, which is basically, think of YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, built on Web3, where your profile is an NFT that you control. There's no centralized anyone doing anything, and you can move from platform to platform. You control your data. You control the publications you have, which could be comments, could be things you've looked at. Again, earliest stages of building that out, but I think that's an interesting and very powerful use case for NFTs, given how large, obviously, and powerful all the social media companies are. So I think that's something that's out of the box. That's an interesting technology innovation that's coming.
Another one that I would add, I think most people in this room probably wouldn't call this cutting edge, but I think things that bridge the gap between quote unquote regular, normal, non-Web3 people in the Web3 world, examples like MoonPay or Chainlink, basically bringing real world utility to the Web3 community. I think a lot of times people in the space, myself included, find ourselves thinking about really novel breakthrough use cases when in fact what we really need is better UI and front-end experiences to actually use the product. I think Vinny called out that it's really difficult for us to get people who are new to the space to even figure out how to navigate, how to fund a wallet, to even buy an NFT, right? People who are investing in making that process, even just from a UI perspective, easier and more intuitive are the people I find most interesting in the space.
I would definitely check out Urbit too, if you like Lens protocol. I think like what they're building, and you talk about a device for Web3, they're looking at their Web3 OS as like the browser is the OS and not the hardware. And I think, I think it's like relatively still early and very hobbyist. Like they have their own coding language, Hoon, which like they have grants they give through address space, but they're using the NFT sort of as a profile or the holder of the information.
So I have one more question for the panel before we go into some lightning round questions, which is, NFTs obviously played a big role in coming out of the last bear market into the most recent bull cycle. That, $69 million sale of the Beeple to Metacoven, that paired with, Michael Saylor putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet and MicroStrategy, paired with DeFi innovation with things like YFI, all of those plus kind of pandemic economic stimulation, all those situations were the perfect storm, Bitcoin halving cycle for a roaring bull market to come back. And certainly NFTs played a big role in this last cycle. What do you see as the role that NFTs are going to play in the next bull cycle and in the transition from this bear market into that? For anyone?
I mean, something that we're seeing is that even though there are a lot of people who have been a bit scared off from crypto, artists are actually taking a little bit more time to work on their pieces and put them out instead of feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to put out a new piece every day because there's such a crazy demand. And so I think there's going to be a huge just reconsideration about, how much time and effort we want to put into singular pieces. And there's also just a big rush of bad actors leaving the space. They just, the bull market is, great for artists and innovators, but it's also great for scammers. And so there's definitely this cleansing of the space that is happening that is now paving the way for not only established crypto artists to continue to work on their craft, but also for new people to come in. One thing that I think we have to really think about and take into consideration is also the Ethereum merge that happened a week ago. I know those of us in crypto are really excited about it, that like Ethereum, the second biggest blockchain, is now 99.5% more clean, but most people don't know this even happened. People are still out there with the misinformation saying that ETH is bad for the environment. And so, for everybody here, please tell all your friends that ETH is green, because I think that, and then the next innovation, sharding, which is going to make gas prices really low, is going to be just a huge way of getting rid of one of those major barriers, which is cost. I mean, when Ethereum was $4,000, like, I know I'm talking to a room of lots of students. I mean, how many people here have $4,000 to buy one coin? Like, I don't, right? And so I think everything that's happened with Ethereum is going, and that continues to happen, is going to be one of the biggest pushes towards getting more people onboarded into the space, which will just make it all the better.
How do NFTs get us out of this bear market? What's their role in the next bull market?
I think the next bull market, I don't even know if NFTs will be the thing that we're calling NFTs. I think I'm excited about the $20 NFT that maybe came from a professional sports team or a big brand that we all know today. I think that's when we'll see a lot more adoption and people stop asking a lot more of the technical questions, and it just becomes a thing that you do every day, that you have a digital asset that represents that you went to that game or that you partook in an event.
Yeah, I always say, like, if you created a new application today, you wouldn't describe to people and then say, and it works on the internet, right? You'd sound like an idiot for saying that. I really believe we'll get to a point where if you say, and it's an NFT, it'll sound as stupid as saying today, and it works on the internet. I agree. I think it's going to be out there. People are not even going to know what that NFT thing is, but they know what benefits and advantages they're getting from using it.
I love, people always ask, and you can nerd out, what is blockchain technology? What is proof of stake? All these things. And then at the same time, I'll ask the person if they can explain to me how the internet works, and they have no idea.
How does TCP/IP work?
Exactly. And that's the evolution.
Who knows how TCP/IP works? Fu Foundation, School of Engineering? You know how TCP/IP works. Yeah, good, great. Just making sure Columbia is still doing its thing. All right, cool. So, and let's go into a quick lightning round, if you will. We're already a little over time, but maybe starting with Lucian and going down the line. What's the most recent NFT that you bought that you're excited about, and why?
I bought this group called All Stars, partially because it was a like avant-garde, like very niche project, like All Stars, Gushies, Ad World, And I'm not a big fan of the PFP, but I do think what they were doing was interesting. Yeah.
I recently bought a Hedron from the British artist Animatic. What I love about it is this artist, with some of the help from super engineers, made a custom contract. So really like putting coding back into the artistic process. As you were saying, scientists are artists, so are coders.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the latest. This is the most interesting thing I've bought. We was in a company that did this. Damien Hirst, for those who know, famous artist, had 10,000 prints that he had hand done, and you could buy an NFT of each of those prints. And after a year, you either kept the NFT and they burned the physical print, or you could get the physical print, in which case they burned your NFT. It was called the Currency Project. Like, where do people see value? Anyway, I thought that was an interesting project to be part of.
I actually love Damien Hirst as well. Selfishly, I would say VFriends. I think that was actually my last NFT that I've bought, and I'm just excited about what we're doing.
For me, I recently bought this NFT from an artist named Fahad Karim, and he does cityscapes, but in very surreal kind of depictions. But what I liked about it is that he token gated the IRL experience. So for token holders, which he verified, he was able to send a framed physical print. So I just put that up in my house last week.
Awesome. I just bought a squiggle recently and then went through the process, or I'm still going through the process to license it for commercial use to go on the front cover of a book that's coming out April 4th on Web3 marketing, which is going to be one of the first Web3 business books from a major publisher, which I'm super excited about. Very quickly, lightning round. Do you think we'll still be using the term NFTs in 10 years? Yes or no?
No.
No.
All right, no more NFTs. Final lightning round. Shill your thing. What would you like people here to know about?
I got to start.
Go.
So bad at shilling. Yeah, I launched an NFT project called Seeds. They were 10,000 seed packets that I digitally altered, and they will go to funding the Seeds DAO, which is an organization that will give grants to artists that are proposing projects.
I'm currently filming and editing a 7-part NFT class on a platform called Class 101, and it'll be like 10 hours of footage, me talking about the applications of NFTs in Web3. That's what it's called. If you want to learn more, check it out.
Interesting. I should probably promote our law firm. But I think I'll promote lawyers, which is so bad to do. But I think there's a lot of legal issues with NFTs. We touched on the IP ones a little bit, but there's a lot of there are a lot of landmines out there you can step on, and you need to be careful. So get a good lawyer if you're doing an NFT project.
I would do both. I think it's such a good opportunity. It's an amazing time to be graduating. I think there's so many opportunities to connect in whatever your skill set is. There's a project or NFT company that could probably use it. Aside from that, VFriends, if you own a Series 1, you get a VCon ticket. VCon this year was amazing. There's 2 more years of VCon at least. I would hope for all of you to come to VCon.
And I'll show OpenSea, which I hope many of you already know, but really want to focus on, we're trying to solicit even more product feedback from people who are using the product. So if you have any, please let me know. My information should be in the pamphlet, so please don't hesitate to email and I'll forward it to the right people on the team.
I will do my own super fast. Serotonin, services firm focused on marketing and product studio, about 150 people total worldwide between our services and our products. We are hiring for some roles that I think are ideal for folks just coming out of college, including a Web3 social media manager role and a chief of staff role working closely with me. Actually, right after I graduated from Columbia, I took my first job that looked kind of like that, and that ended up being my entree into what I'm doing now. So please come up to me after if you're interested in that, or meet Michelle, who is my colleague back there, redheaded gal, and would love to talk about working together. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks.
Do we do questions or are we all done? I think we're all done. We're at time. All right. I guess you can find us for questions.
I mean, if anyone has a question, feel free to ask now. Okay, go ahead. You want a mic?
What is your for the entire panel, favorite example of real world utility with current NFT projects, DeFi projects, best examples.
Tickets.
IRL redemption of art.